Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets. Today, our guest is Tarun Agarwal. He is the founder of 3D Dentist and Raleigh Dental Arts. He's a keynote speaker, and he's been practicing dental for almost 22 years now. So he has got quite the track record in this space. And Dr. Tarun, pleasure to have you on the show. How's it going?
It's great to be here, Austin. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about, for once, something different than clinical dentistry.
Yeah, great. Well, we're excited to have you on too. So tell us your story. How did you get involved in dental? I know you've done a lot of different businesses, a lot of different lines of businesses. It sounds like in your past and your family and stuff like that. So what's the story there?
Yeah, I jokingly say dentistry is in my blood. My dad was a dentist in India, never practiced in the United States due to licensing when he immigrated here. So he did what all other Indians do. He started a business. Our case was a motel, which shouldn't be that big of a shock to the listeners. And I remember growing up living in the motel, and to make extra money or to have a side hustle, looking back on it, my dad made denture. He was a denture technician. He made dentures for other dental practices. And so I would watch him and help him make dentures growing up. And that kind of sparked my interest and really love for our profession. And that's kind of the reason I am a dentist today. He always talked about, but what was interesting, he didn't talk so much about how being a great clinician was so important and all of those, not that it's not important, but he always talked about how being a dentist was always a good job. Very rarely do dentists ever get laid off or fired or not have a way of making a living. But he also talked about how it's seed money or it creates capital to be able to invest into other businesses, and that you can actually be an entrepreneur more so than medicine was allowing, certainly at the time and definitely now. So that's kind of how I got into dentistry. It's really because of my dad. And then my brother went on to become a dentist, and he's an oral surgeon now in Washington, D.C. It's really kind of in the family.
That's cool. And so what do you mean when you say it allowed you to become an entrepreneur more so than other healthcare options?
Well, I can't speak to other healthcare situations, but dentistry for the most part is a 4 or 5 day a week job. There's very rarely are there evening hours. They're not weekend or night calls or any of those things. So you really, to a certain degree, have almost 40% of your week available to really invest into other avenues from a perspective of designing your time and all of those things. So it really creates a lot of flexibility. And then if you're good at what you do and you build a good business as a practice owner, then you should have extra cash that you can reinvest into whatever hobbies or businesses that you want to put it into.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. A lot of ER doctors, as an example, are just on call all the time, right? Or they're putting these 80 hours.
Right.
So yeah, there's a little bit more balance, a little bit less time constraints. Yeah, I understand.
Anytime you start a new business, certainly as an active investor in a business, you are going to spend some time doing it. You're going to be there. You're going to have to be on site. You're going to have to be available. And if you're on call or you're having things to do on the weekend, that doesn't really lend yourself to being available to your new side hustle or business that you're starting. So that's why I say it's a little bit different than most avenues of healthcare, certainly medicine.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, in this case, how long have you owned your practice for?
20 years now. So I got out of school in 1999. I worked as an associate for a year at a couple of different offices. And then I always wanted to open my own office. I just wasn't quite ready out of school. And then I opened my own office, and we've been in business for 20 years. We opened in late 2000, early 2001. So it's been about 20 years now.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so that's awesome that you're able to open up like so quickly at school like that. Was it a new practice or was it an acquisition, or what was the story there?
It was a startup.
Nice. How long did that take you guys before you were, doing well and profitable?
Define well. Um,
I
you
guess
know,
not losing money would be one metric.
yeah. So I would say it took me about a year and a half to 2 years. And some of that was dumb mistakes. Some of that was being committed to a bigger vision of what I wanted to be. And some of that had to do with, which you'll appreciate, had to do with the location selection of where our practice was. So there's a lot of factors there. You know, I would tell people that you should go into any new business expecting or planning for it to be revenue negative for the first year or so. But I don't think it should take that long to be revenue positive anymore. Looking back, I would imagine that I could figure out a way to get there in 6 months if I had to do it over again.
Yeah, it's good. Hindsight's always 2020, right? We always
It is.
made afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's why it's like, you know, during that, because I had some fitness centers as well. And you know, yeah, the first one that probably took close to, and it was a franchise, so it's not like I'm necessarily paving the way, right? Similar to dentistry, like, you know, there's a proven model there. But still, it took almost 2 years, maybe like a year and a half as well. But it's because there's a lot of mistakes that you have to make, right? Like, you can read and you can research and you can read all the books in the world and they'll give you insights on some things. But I mean, it's just so complicated. There's so many decisions to make all the time that until you actually go and do it and get your hands dirty, you just don't know what you don't know. And so, but afterwards, you know, that's why the second one, you know, if you had, like you said, redoing it, we opened up a couple more. It took a lot less time to get to profitability because of all the stuff that we had made, all the mistakes that we had made along the way. We were able to course correct a couple of those and shorten that time just a little bit. But still, at the end of the day, a year and a half is not bad. I mean, they say the average is like 2 years when you start a new business, right? Before you even.
Well, again, you defined it as not losing money, so.
Yeah, it's true.
So being able to live a good life, it certainly took longer than that.
So I know that you had relocated your practice several times. Can you talk to us about that, some of the decisions that went into deciding to relocate?
Yeah, you know, like any startup, and certainly as a immigrant or having immigrant mentality, my goal with my startup was to try to minimize out-of-pocket costs. And I certainly wouldn't necessarily do it that way again, but that's the mindset I had. So what I looked for was, or what I found was, an existing dental office that had failed in a location, and I took over their lease. And retrospectively, there's probably a reason why it didn't do so well in that location. One, it was as a startup, I didn't need 3,600 square feet. I didn't need 8 operatories. You know, I didn't equip that many. I only equipped 2 operatories. But I think what really hurt me in the beginning was that there was zero visibility or ability for people to find me. So in other words, if they weren't specifically looking for me or responding to direct marketing, there was no way that they would know I existed. And I looking back, that was certainly a problem. So combined with, yes, I didn't have the cost of upfitting a space, but I had a higher rent because it was a larger space. And then, so about year 3, roughly about year 3, we decided it was time to move. One, I was starting to be profitable, as I mentioned, but having that big rent was not helpful. And then also paying lease, I wasn't a big proponent of paying a rent every month. And so then we started looking for a place to buy. And again, still having a small business mentality or a cheapness mentality, I looked for an existing office space that was already a dental office that I could purchase. It came about, it was 1,900 square feet. It was inexpensive. And so we moved to that. The good news is our practice did start doing well there. I think that had to do with just general momentum of being a startup. The not so good news was it was a worse location than my previous location. At least my previous location was a known medical building. This one was a side street. But my rent/mortgage payment went down. I owned it. we were gaining momentum, and I was able to keep my overhead pretty low. But in retrospect, and a lot of times you don't really understand these until you go through it and get to the other side. In retrospect, 1,900 square feet was too small. The location and the size of it didn't fit the long-term vision that I had, that I was turning into. And so after about 5 years of being in that location, we then moved to our current location, which is on a major intersection. It's not quite a CVS location where they're right at the corner, but it's one step back from being on the corner. It's right on the main street, and it's 10,000 square feet. We have our own sign. We have clear visibility.
You have the co-tenants then?
When we bought it, we did, but today we do not.
Wow.
So my wife
you're
has
occupying all 10,000 square feet.
Well, let's be always truthful about all of that, okay? So we have 10,000 square feet. We have 3 businesses that we own in there.
Oh, okay.
My dental practice, my wife's medical practice, and our education company, 3D Dentists, is all housed within that 10,000 square feet. My practice and her practice has grown enough to where we've kicked out 3D Dentists, and we just purchased a new location for that education business, a new retreat center for that education business, so that way we can expand into that part of the building. But look, our success has to do with momentum. Our success has to do with our business model of being, for the 80% for every patient. Like, we can do 80% of anything somebody needs within our practice, but certainly our location and visibility plays a significant help in helping to grow and to also minimize the downturns that we will definitely face in any business.
Yeah. Because I agree 100%. Like, at the end of the day, the best location for the worst business is still going to fail, right? Like, plenty of restaurants take up prime retail space and go out of business all the time. So yeah, the underlying business absolutely has to be good, but operating under the assumption that you know what you're doing, and you have a decent practice, and you're taking care of the patients, then absolutely real estate is like one of the next most important things, because like you said, you pick this spot, you're trying to save money. We see that a lot. It was 1,900 square feet. It was already built out, and to your defense, building out office is expensive. Dental is one of the most expensive industries in the world, like $180 to $200 a square foot, right? And so yeah, you're trying to do the right thing, save money, be conservative with your funds. But like you said, this was more recessed, less known than the other ones. And so a lot of times we think that, okay, well, if we build it, they'll come, right? Or we're going to use digital marketing, we're going to use flyers, we're going to use word of mouth referrals, all that kind of stuff. And you do, and that works to an extent, but you get so much exposure from having it on the street. And it's like, it almost seems like an outdated concept, for me, like, I remember thinking as well, like, why am I paying, when I had the gyms, I had these retail spots, why am I paying for this rent to get this marketing when most of my people just come in from Facebook and Google ads anyways? And it's like, well, those are great platforms to use, but they're bidding platforms. And so intrinsically, the value, the cost is only going to go up over time because you're bidding against other people.
Well, and the competition goes up.
Yeah, the competition goes up online, exactly. And so when you view rent, the excess, because you have to pay rent for your building no matter what, but when you view the excess rent as a factor of your marketing budget, then you can have a lot more clarity in decision making. So if you know that your cost of acquisition, per patient, with either your direct mailers or your digital ad spend or whatever it is, then you've got a real solid metric. You got real solid data to compare it to. And then you can, if you see how much more, if you have 2 locations that you're looking at, one is very recessed, one is, this office deep way in the back, another one is a prominent retail spot. Well, how many patients do you need to get per month to offset this extra rent? Then it's clarity, right? And it's like, okay, is it more or less likely that I'm going to get these 10 or 20 new patients that I need? Probably more likely, more often than not, it's more likely that you're going to get about 20 patients at least. I mean, we've helped them relocate. One guy, he was paying $3,000 a month for rent. He was in healthcare, not dentistry. The next spot, like best spot for him, because he was in an urban area, dense area, was like 10 grand a month. And so it's like, holy crap, like he's tripling his rent. And so as a factor of rent, that sounds like a lot. but as a factor of your total overall expenses, I mean, an extra $7,000 is not that much on a percent base, right? Like it's something to be considered, but it's not a deal breaker. And what happened though was by increasing his rent by that factor, he had a 50 to 100% increase in his revenue every single month, right? And so it's like, okay, I increased my expenses by maybe 10% or whatever it was, 15%, but I increased my revenue by 50 to 100%, right? And then so that was the thing. It's like, it's scary, it's hard at the time to do it, but when you actually pull the trigger, you make the decision, you look at all the data, then it pays off. It pays off in dividends. So it sounds like you guys did a great job in finding that location. You know, I'm not sure, was there, clearly you wanted to buy, like you didn't want to rent. So was there a lot of research that went into finding that spot?
You know, I got to be honest with you. We didn't we semi-actively were looking for space. So
Okay.
it wasn't like, hey, I got to move because I've got a lease ending and all of those things. It was, if something, the right location comes along, we're ready to pull the trigger. And look, it was scary going from a 2,000 square foot building worth about $250,000 to a 10,000 square foot building that was costing $1.6, $1.7 million is a big jump. And it took me some time to really wrap my head around it. And I remember talking to friends and mentors at the time, and they would say, it's not a big deal. You'll be fine. It makes sense. Just go with it. And me being like, they lost their mind. And at a point now where it has been a good business decision. Now, in terms of whether it's been a great investment, that's time will tell. I'll argue being in a building 13 years and having the value go from 1.6 to 2.1, 2.2 million. I don't know how great of a use of my money that was, if you really look at it. So another piece of advice I would try to give to people is don't get fixated on owning. Don't let that keep you from really. The money in your business is the operation of your business. You know, there's a reason large franchise restaurants and large franchise stores don't own all their real estate, is because they want to make smart use of the capital and they want to have flexibility to move as the trends in the market move. Now, they also don't have as big of an upfit cost as we do typically. And, but I wouldn't let this fixation on owning become a limitation in finding your spot. Because honestly, you're probably not going to be able to own in all retail spots.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. We get this question all the time. I have a very similar answer, right? We're all limited by the amount of capital that we have, no matter what. And yeah, your capital is usually going to be a better return for you when you put it in your business than investing in commercial real estate. Now, that being said, obviously commercial real estate is very safe, but we always coach it from the level of like, find the best spot for you, for your business.
Yeah,
like,
for the business.
Yeah, exactly. You said it well. Don't get fixated on owning. Like do the research, do the demographical research, the analytical data, the competition evaluation, look for good anchor tenants and synergistic users, and then find out what's going to be the best spot for your business. Now, if it turns out that you've got two equal spots, one you can rent, one you can own, okay, well, now, exactly. Let's look at now, and now we'll break it down even further, right? Like, because like you said, there's still a cost of capital, right? So even then, in that situation, do you still want to put that capital into the real estate where you said,
yeah, I mean,
increase?
So for example, my $1.6 million building required almost a $300,000 down payment, right?
Yeah.
So that's $300,000 of capital that I'm sinking into this not sinking, but I'm putting into this building. Whereas if I leased a space, that's 300 grand I could put to use in other things. I can buy another building, so I would say that looking back, it's been very good for me. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get fixated on owning.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. 100%. 100%. We're all limited by that. So yeah, that's good. What you mentioned your wife has a healthcare business as well. What's her business?
Yeah. She's a medical doctor. She has a psychiatry practice. So she's a psychiatrist. So her practice, we've always wanted to practice together. We're very family oriented. We don't drive to work every day, but we get to have lunch almost together every day. And also in our business model where we're trying to actually develop businesses and not just own a job, which is what most solo practitioners have. They own, they own a job basically.
Yeah.
Um, we want to be able to watch each other's business. Like for example, she's out of town this week, and I'm able to check in on her business. When I'm out of town or doing something, she's able to check in on our business, my business. So we're able to really synergistically work together on that. But also there is a limitation there. At some point, her practice is growing differently than mine, and my practice is growing differently from hers. And we're running into a place where space becomes an issue for us. And so there may be the time that we have to separate our businesses. So we can't become fixated on having to work together.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Oh, well, I'd say, enjoy it while it lasts, right? I mean, that's such a cool thing that you guys have right now, even if it doesn't last forever. That's a gift, my friend. And so like in psychiatry, are you seeing any similar trends like you're seeing in dental? Like I know in dental, like we're seeing a lot of these DSOs emerge, like these dental service organizations that are coming in and acquiring a ton of locations, and they're really fixated on growth, through acquisition or de novo. Are you seeing any groups like that in psychiatry as well?
Well, sure. I mean, it's not what we see in medicine in general is the hospital systems in most areas own a significant percentage of the market. They're not DSOs, but essentially they're DSOs. Yeah, or they're MSOs in the medical side of things. And so, yeah, we're seeing consolidation because you have to. One, your competition's doing it. Two, the synergies, like if, for example, we're private, but if we're a group psychiatry practice, all the patients get sent to XYZ hospital versus this hospital. Maybe we're losing on a little bit on the practice, but we're making on the facility fees of the hospital. There's a lot of dynamics involved on the medicine side, but it's not different from the dental side. My argument to dentists is no dentist should practice alone ever again. That we should at least, even if we're a single location, we should be multiple dentists within that single location to compete and stay up to date with the advantages that DSOs have over us.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And so like with 3D dentists, you do, I guess, keynote speaking and education, both on the clinical side and on the business side. So what kind of things do you guys talk about in that business?
Yeah. So, we're a full education company. It started off as a side hustle, like most things in my life do.
Nice.
Because it's something I enjoyed doing and something I wanted to do. I wanted to prove the business concept, and then it turned into a full-fledged business. We provide live patient education where we provide patients for our attendees to learn advanced clinical procedures like dental implants. We provide lecture style, classroom style education on a multitude of topics that are areas of growth within our industry: sleep apnea, dental implants, orthodontics, medical billing, sedation, things that actually move the needle in the practice. And then we provide on a smaller level individual speaking and stuff where, a certain number of times a year, I'll go out and do speaking events on the various topics and the business side. My passion is on, I hate to say it's the business side because, I'm not a true businessman in my eyes. There are people that are much better bean counters and much stronger business minded than I am. I'm more of a lifestyle business person where I want to help people create a great life, to make the income they want and deserve, to get clarity about what kind of practice they want to be, to put into place the frameworks that will support the clinical lifestyle they want, not necessarily how you can save $1 here and make more money here. For the typical single 1 to 2 location practice, that dentistry is their quote unquote job, but they're passionate about it. Some of those things don't matter. That extra percent doesn't move the needle for me at this point. Gaining more time moves the needle, or doing new procedures that keep me engaged. Those kind of things move the needle for me. So I don't like to say I'm true business training. I'm more lifestyle business education for dentists.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You're not trying to help people become billionaires at all costs, right? It's about balance, about a
Yeah,
holistic approach. You might not
yeah,
need, why need to scrape every dollar, like, if that's not going to enhance your lifestyle, right? Is that kind of
right.
the,
Yeah, and I try to keep it simple. Dentistry doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It just needs to fulfill your goals of what you're trying to accomplish for yourself and your family, and for your employees, because they're certainly an important part of that as well. I want them to succeed as much as I succeed.
yeah, yeah, that's great. So I'm curious about some of your other businesses. I know you mentioned part of it is you got you some free time and you get to invest in other things and choose what to invest in. So what kind of things do you have? What different prods do you have in the iron, or I guess
Yeah,
irons in the furnace is the is the
yeah.
thing.
Again, I'll say this: I'm not full fledged in really anything,
Okay.
which is part of the problem. Is I've got a lot of pokers going on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm half in my world. I'm half-assing a lot of different things, but that half-assing is pretty good. But so in 10th grade, we started a billboard business where we bought land and built billboards. That started as doing that for our motel, and then that turned into, when you build one billboard, you typically build 4 signs on one site. So we would take one sign and put our motel on it, and then we'd have 3 empty signs. And slowly but surely, we started renting those out. So I learned how to prospect different businesses that would synergistically fit into that. Understand what locations would help certain businesses, how to invoice and do the bookkeeping to make sure that business did well, and all of that. And that's that we're talking 1988. 1990 we started, 88, 90 we started that. So we're talking 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's still in works. It's not a real business, but it spits out $3, $4, $5,000 a month in revenue.
And it probably doesn't
Uh,
take up much of your time, right?
Zero of our
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, we pay
Passive
somebody
income.
else we give somebody a equity ownership in the business to make sure that everything's taken care of. But yet we own the land that all the signs are on, which is another slowly but surely increasing your net value or net worth. And then like I mentioned earlier, my dad was in the motel business, and over time he's grown that. And I'm not I'm not actively involved with that yet, or at this time, but we provide some money, and I'm involved mentally in it. So we are up to 6 or 7 locations now.
So you have 6 or 7 motels.
Now it might be, we're down to 6 or 7. At one time it was 8 or 9,
Okay.
but
These
we've
are
sold a
pretty
couple.
big units, right? Like, how much square foot or how many acres do they occupy? How many rooms do they have?
Our biggest one we just finished up in late 2019 was 150 rooms.
Wow.
So look, if some of my Indian friends are listening, we have small businesses. If some of my beginner friends are listening, we have big businesses. Everything's relative.
Yeah.
I had a dinner with a guy the other day, and he was asking me, and he didn't say it in any negative way, but he was like, "Oh, that's a small property," because he's dealing with 400 or 500 unit places.
Wow.
And so everything's relative to your risk level, the goals that you have, what you're able to capitalize and fund. So you can't live life comparing yourself to others. But that's my dad's business. Certainly, I'm involved in it, but not actively involved. Then we have our education business. We have my dental practice, my wife's medical practice, and then we've started getting into real estate a little bit in the last few years. So
What
we
kind of real
own.
estate?
Well, I, I'm not a big. I'm not. My wife is in the real estate stuff. It's not. I don't like dealing with human beings. I don't like dealing with people.
Okay.
I'm a people person. I don't like dealing with tenants, I should say.
Okay.
So I let my wife handle that. She's very comfortable with that. So we owned. So I owned my. I just until recently I owned my original office that I first bought, and then I had moved out of. So we moved out of it in 2008, but I didn't sell it till 2019. So for 11 years, I was collecting rent on it. So that building was paid off when I left, and then I collected rent on it for 11 more years. So that turned out to be a very good real estate investment for me. I bought it for one price, sold it for $20,000 more, so the appreciation wasn't there, but we made very well on the rent,
On the cash flow, yeah.
on the cash flow on that. So not everything has to be about appreciation.
Yeah.
I'll argue about it's more about the immediate cash flow than the long-term appreciation, because long-term appreciation is unreal. It's paper money until you sell it. And then we bought a couple of beach properties, and then we just recently bought this 10-acre retreat, and then we're looking at some commercial buildings. We're starting to look at some commercial properties as well.
And so with your places that you bought on the beach, what's the plan there? Is that an Airbnb? Are they long-term rentals? Are they just vacation spots? What are you guys looking with those?
Well, I don't like the beach personally, so
So mostly rental.
yeah. So, but our rule is this: we rent from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We don't go there, and then we don't rent after that. And this isn't good business, but we don't rent. One of the places we rent year-round because we're not going to go there. But one of the places we don't rent from Labor Day through Memorial Day because we want the flexibility to be able to go. And I don't mind going to the beach when it's less than 85 degrees.
Yeah.
So typically around that time it is. So we could do better on that rental if I were more flexible about renting it. But for example, I may decide to go there today. And if somebody were renting it from me, it would drive me crazy that I wouldn't be able to go. So mentally, I know I got to pay for the place. So the 12 weeks of summer pays for the place every year.
Oh, really? Okay. So the 12 weeks that it's rented out pays for all your expenses the entire year. So you essentially have a free vacation.
Except unforeseen expenses.
Like the capital expenses. Okay.
Yeah, some maintenance costs and things like that. It doesn't cover that. But beach properties, they rent for a lot of money. I mean, I can't believe people pay their rent that they pay for it. So it rents for a decent amount of money in the summertime, and those 12 weeks pay for the place minus the down payment that we put in. It pays for the current mortgage and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I recently had a guest on the show named Richard Fertig, a really smart guy who managed $4.5 billion for Blackstone as a hedge fund manager.
Okay.
Now he started short-term rental university. That's kind of like one of his main things. And, we're just talking about that. And like, you gotta, there's ROI and that's important. But with a lot of short-term rentals, there's quality of life too. And you can't measure that on a spreadsheet per se.
Yeah.
You got to take that into consideration when you're looking at the whole equation, because it's a total picture. And so like, if you got a spot out in Salt Lake City or Aspen or Vail, Colorado, or something like that, where you want to go skiing and snowboarding, and you're going to use that, then that has a measure, like an intangible measure of your investment. And so it's like, you can use it strictly, like the one that you're not using, obviously you want to use that strictly as a cash flow, as a return on your investment. Right. But if you're using it and you're taking advantage of it, like, yeah, you gotta, somehow that plays into the equation, that it's not all about dollars and cents.
Yeah, I would argue you got to pay yourself rent. When you use the place, pay the entity that owns it rent, so that way, there's a tangible value to the time, and you can see if it makes sense. So look, there's so many ways to skin a cat. I think sometimes, and I speak from experience here, we get fixated on the home run. And there's a lot of value in singles. Singles won the Cardinals a World Series in the late 80s. And singles are stolen bases pretty much. And so singles can make a great income for dentists. Our goal right now is to purchase one property a year. For us to purchase a property a year, it's not going to be a big property. It's going to be something that's going to be in the anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 value. But for us to look at purchasing a property every year, that's an income producing property to add to our portfolio, so that we can have passive income. Because I don't believe that our lifestyle is going to change when we retire. This concept that you can live on less when you retire, I think is a falsehood, or at least it's a falsehood in our lives. So we want to maintain our level of income forever, and so we're trying to put those plans into place to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, that's cool. And and your analogy of winning off the singles, I mean, you're seeing it now more than ever, where people are trying to get rich quick. It's always been a
Yeah.
thing. Get rich quick has always been a thing, but like, you talk about the Reddit forums, Wall Street bets,
Mhm.
and the GME, diamond hands, betting against the hedge funds, YOLO stocks, meme stocks. You're putting it all in Dogecoin, GameStop, AMC, all these types of things. Like, and like whatever, like if you want to throw 1% at it, see if it sticks, that's one thing, right? But to really, I mean, some people took out college saving funds, some people invested like more than half of their portfolio. And you're really hoping most people, that's a losing game. I mean, yeah, you hear about the guy who made tens of millions. He's featured on all the media and stuff like that, but like that's not 1%, that's not 0.1%, it's like 0.0001% of those guys make it. And so when you're looking at it from a short-term perspective, it's like, all right, YOLO, let's throw it all out here and let's try and get these home runs. It's a lot riskier. You're not really, people have a hard time accounting for the risk factor in a lot of those things. And so when you account for the risk, there's actually a lot more upside long term.
Yeah, I always say Vegas is in business because the vast majority of people lose money when they go there.
It's not built on winners, I'll tell you that.
all you hear about are the winners, right?
Yeah.
And so I look, again, dentistry has affords us a great opportunity to have a great life and a great lifestyle. It affords us the capital to be able to invest in things. And look, I'm a conservative, try to play it slow. My wife says I'm too conservative and too slow. Some of my friends say, "Wow, you're so aggressive." I mean, it's just, but it's such a phenomenal profession. It's why I love it so much. It's why I recommend it to anybody that I can, and because it allows you to control your destiny, and that's what I believe in. I believe that's the American dream, is for you to control your own destiny.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's funny. People look at me and they think I'm a risk taker a lot of times. I've started different things and I was a professional athlete and stuff like this, but it was always calculated risks, even in athletes, even in athletics and wakeboarding and stuff like that. You can train smart, you can train certain ways to mitigate the downside. And so it's like that now. A lot of the billionaires, a lot of the multi-millionaires, 100 millionaires, they're just very, very risk averse, and they could grow a lot faster potentially, but there's also a lot more downside. And so, yeah, not thinking of it in terms of like, all right, how much am I going to make this year? Or, how much can I make these next couple of months? But like, no, what about long-term? Like, what do I want to provide? What kind of lifestyle do I want to live? What do I want to provide for my kids and my grandkids? And what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? And that comes from like being smart and understanding the downside of what you're, of what you're investing in. So yeah, I like that analogy about the singles. And yeah, it's still true. It's true then, it's true now, and it'll always be true.
Yeah, 1 + 1 + 1 eventually equals 100.
Yeah.
It just may take longer to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. So with I know you said you bought a 10-acre place for a retreat. When is the next, like, do you want to tell people about that? When is that?
Yeah.
How they can get involved?
Yeah, so 3D Dentist is 3D-dentists with plural.com. And we provide great education. The 10-acre retreat, it's unbelievably unique in dentistry. I think I'm a little bit crazy, but we're not. We're very good at what we do. There's no question about that. I like to say, people, look, we're not the best, we're not the worst, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but my focus is on being a place where we can have the biggest impact in people's practices. And I think to really have the biggest impact, you have to build your business around what it takes to have the biggest impact. And then the business part of it will ultimately take care of itself. And so what we've done and what I believe in is we have 2 buildings on a 10-acre retreat. Building 1 is a home where 12 of the attendees can stay on site along with the instructors and the co-instructors. And then the building number 2 is the training center where we do the actual classes. And all of this is on 10 acres. We have nature trail, we have a creek, we have a pool, hot tub. It's a very, like, most people would be very, very happy to live in this place. And so basically the concept is, we can hold about 40 people in each of our classes. 12 of those people will choose the VIP experience, where they'll stay on site. Myself, the instructors, whoever's leading the programs will stay with you. And, we always joke or say that the best learning is when you talk to colleagues, like-minded individuals. Iron sharpens iron. You talk to your instructors, and all of that occurs outside of classroom hours. And so we've taken it upon ourselves to extend classroom hours to however long people want to stay up. And and we've done 2 programs. We have a 3rd program this weekend, and it's doing well. And our response has been what we expect, what we've hoped for, I should say, not what we expect, but what we hope for. And I believe there's more dentists out there who are looking for a like-minded place where the main focus is on the single location dentist that's trying to build a lifestyle business. And that's 80% of our customers.
Yeah, that's great. So 3d-dentist.com. I'll leave that in the show notes. People can come take a look at that.
Thank you.
Do you have a podcast, anything like that?
Yeah, I've been running a podcast. We're on episode 250, I think now. Nice. The Tbone Speaks Dentistry podcast. So that's been very regular for the last 2 years. But the first 2 years of it was on and off. But once we got consistent with it, it's gotten pretty good. It's more work than I realize. I joke with people. I look at everything as a vertical. It's like its own. It's not a business, but its own business in a sense. And my podcast is the business I haven't figured out how to make a dime off of yet. It costs me money every month to do it, but I love doing it. I love connecting with people. I love sharing my real experiences, other people's real experiences. I love not being beholden to any companies. I just love that part of it, and I've always committed to being an open book and openly sharing 90% of what goes on in my life.
Yeah, that's great. So I'll put that in there as well. Tbone Speaks Dentistry podcast.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got the show notes right here, and I'll put those in for the listeners so they can click on. And it was a real pleasure talking to you, and we definitely appreciate your time.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate the invite.